Now can we move on to the problem that brought you here? Jody, this is a little far-fetched, and I know it may seem hard to believe, but my wife is planning to leave me and wants to take the girls with her. It's not hard to believe, John. We see this all the time. Shouldn't she have a reason to do something like that? Usually, when a mother comes to us, she has documents or something else to support the accusation. You just checked and there's nothing there now, right? That's right, John. But how do I know that you're not setting me up because you did something and she hasn't had a chance to report it yet? She may be obtaining medical information or police reports before coming to our office. Just because we don't show anything on our computer doesn't mean you didn't do anything. You say I can't win. No, I'm not saying that. Why do you think she's going to do something like that? I had no intention of showing anyone the email Ken sent, but now I felt I had no choice. I had to ask myself why I made copies if I wasn't going to give them to anyone. I handed one across Jody's desk. Where did you take it? I took it from a computer that I got illegally. I know it can't be used for any legal reason, but it's kind of proof of what's going on. The word conspiracy comes to mind, but I don't know the legal definition of that. I wanted to talk to you or anyone in this office because I didn't know what to do. I don't know how to protect myself and my daughters from something like this, and I can't afford a lawyer. Jody Mitchell relaxed in her chair. I looked at her and didn't blink. She rocked back and forth several times and leaned toward me. Can you come back tomorrow morning? Yes. Fine. See you then. Can I keep this copy of the letter? I nodded yes and turned to walk out the door. It was nice to see you, John. I smiled and she smiled back. I forgot the goth girl and saw a new Jody. I didn't know any lawyers and didn't know anyone who knew lawyers, so I had to pick one from the phone book. I knew that she was planning to divorce me, but under the circumstances, things could change. I didn't want to take any risks. I wasn't sure what our financial picture would look like in the next few days or weeks, so I asked the lawyer to give me a price up front for the entire package and paid it in cash. I advised him to do it the fastest and easiest way he knows. If she wanted a house, she could have it. Because the property depreciated, it was worth less than the mortgage. I also insisted on joint custody of the twins at a minimum. I would take full custody if he could do it. I would pay child support but not alimony. Billy called me on the way to lunch. He needed housing and I of course offered to shelter him. We met at Taco Bell for a gourmet lunch. When I approached, a stupid smile appeared on his face. I know you can't be that happy. What's happened? A friend of mine who works at Community General Hospital told me a little information about Calvin. Sarah went there to visit him. While she was there, Calvin's wife came in with their 2 children. Sarah had no idea what she was playing. Things got so messy that hospital security had to escort Sarah out. I walked past Gilbert to talk to her, and she was no longer there. She was gone. I think she should be home now, but I'm not sure. Why didn't his wife live here with him? I don't know. Why didn't he go home to his wife and kids on the weekends? I don't know that either. Honestly, I don't care. Billy took a week off from work to sort out his affairs. I didn't know where he would sleep since my mother also lived at home, but we decided that we would figure something out. He was going to go to his house to try and pick up some clothes and his personal belongings in case Sarah wasn't there. He decided he didn't want to talk to her anymore. I was on my way to see my insurance agent, but I didn't make it because my cell phone rang again. John, this is Cameron Wilcox. Can you come over for a while so we can try to figure things out? Janet is in complete despair and her mother is not helping. Who will be there? The 3 of us and Janet's sister, Carla. I'm not sure what you're hoping to achieve, but I'll be there in about 20 minutes. It was a dark group. I took a folder of goodies with me and gave up coffee. Who wants to start? John, Janet seems to think you're overreacting. She claims that you were furious and made her say things that weren't true to calm you down. She claims she didn't do anything wrong and you have no right to kick her out. I had the distinct impression that my dear wife was telling a very embellished version of what happened to her parents. I can understand why she didn't want to admit to them that she had cheated on her, but she resented the fact that she shifted the blame onto me. What do you want me to do, Cameron? Prove she's a liar or admit I made a mistake? I'd just like to see a few facts so we can better understand the situation. What did she tell you about her friend? She claims she didn't have a boyfriend. She just had a few drinks with friends Sarah worked with and that you misinterpreted it. Cameron, she's had over 80 phone conversations with this random friend in the last month. How many times has she called you and her mother in the last month? They both looked at Janet. She looked at her feet, not at them. Is this like a random friend she meets for drinks every now and then? No one was talking when I pulled out Ken's cell phone. Carla, can you read text messages? This letter was sent to a random friend of hers right after I kicked her out. Why don't you read it to everyone? Dear Ken, sorry for the trouble. Love, Janet. Carla returned my phone. Does this sound like a casual friend? Janet covered her face with her hands. Cameron shook his head slowly. A couple of weeks ago, Janet and her friend Sarah told everyone they were going shopping at the King of Prussia Mall. The twins begged to go with them, but their mother said no. Here are some photos taken during this trip. I handed Cameron 6 photographs. He looked at them and handed them to Martha and Carla. This is not like the King of Prussia. It's like Nebelgrove. Damn it, Janet. What's going on? Until this moment, Martha had been silent. Janet, in every photo you are holding onto that person's hand for dear life. It's not something you do with friends. It looks like the guy in these photos, Ken, is much more than just a friend, I guess. Are you trying to pull me here? The tears flowed slowly and quietly. This was not what she had hoped for. She didn't expect these photos. Here are a few more of the same. I think 2 of them are from Olive Garden and 1 looks like Red Lobster. I have a few more. Luckily, my loving wife is wearing all of them. I think we've seen enough, John. I'm sorry we had to call you here for this. Cameron seemed upset at how he had been tricked. When I stood up, Janet was leaving the room sobbing like a child. We never got to discuss the stains on her underwear. I think at that time there was no need for this. Cameron walked me to the door. John, I'm sorry we can't undo what's been done, but I guarantee you it won't be ignored. He shook my hand as I left. When I got home, Mom and Billy had already set up a fold-out bed in the living room. It wasn't really a hallway, just a small extra room where I kept my computer. Billy had a pile of extra clothes in the corner that he had taken from home. Sarah wasn't home when he came in. The most interesting thing that was waiting for me when I returned home was the mail. In fact, he was waiting not for me, but for Janet. A beautiful official envelope from the passport department. I knew I shouldn't open it, but I couldn't help myself. It was, of course, a passport, but more precisely a family passport. The photo was of Janet and 2 girls. I remember the girls telling me that they had their picture taken, but I never imagined it was for that purpose. Of course, my passport was not in the envelope. I immediately called Cameron and asked him to tell Janet that the goods had arrived. If she needed a passport, all she had to do was send Ken home to pick it up. I would only give it to Ken. I was usually at work when the letter arrived. I would never have known she got it. Cameron told me that they had asked Janet to find another place to live. They had no idea where she was going to go. They seemed a little angry with their daughter. She promised to tell her about the passport. The conversation over dinner was interesting and mostly comprised of girls. Today, a woman from family service came to our school. Bethany said with a shy smile, "Would you like to talk a little more about this? Did she talk to you together or separately?" "We are both at the same time." "Her name was Jody. She said you went to high school together." "We went to the same high school at the same time, but we weren't together." Britt frowned at me for being smart. "Pay attention, Dad. What did she want to talk to you about?" "You. All she talked about was you." Beth and I agreed that she liked you. "Did you understand this from a short conversation?" "She talked to us for over an hour. We missed the gem and the geography part. They were both talking at the same time, and I was having a hard time keeping up with them." Dinner was interrupted by Carla's phone call. She wanted to talk. "I met Sister Janet at McDonald's. We took a corner table with 2 very hot coffees. John, Janet asked me to try to explain what was going on. She couldn't do it herself. This may sound stupid, but if I have questions, how will you answer them?" "I don't think I can. All I can do is talk and you listen. I'm sure I'll mess something up anyway because most of it sounded like gibberish when she told it to me. You are setting me up so that you can tell me that you have no answers. Only excuses and justifications. I always knew you were smart, John. Let's get this over with. I have other things to do." First of all, she blamed Sarah for everything. Sarah started cheating on Billy, and it sounded exciting and romantic. Janet said she had never had an exciting or romantic experience. All she ever had was you. Loving and reliable. When Ken Sanders started in Gilbert, Sarah convinced Janet to join them for a drink and a bite to eat. While they were together, Sarah and Calvin often disappeared for a little lovemaking and left Janet and Ken alone. Eventually, they started messing around too, and soon, it was a full-blown affair. Once it started, she couldn't or wouldn't stop it. Ken impressed her with his stories of what he was doing and what he was going to do. She wanted to go with and share it all. When he asked her to go to Spain, she jumped at it. The big problem was not leaving you but leaving the girls. She knew you would never let her take them abroad. So she was going to figure out a way to make you look bad, father. Now she knows it was a mistake. After talking with the girls, she realized that they are closer to you than to her. She decided that she would not try to have twins if you agreed to a divorce without any condition. That's all? Almost so? Yes. Fine. Tell her to go and apply. I will not dispute this if everything is as you described. Oh, John. One more thing. Janet would like to get her passport. Do you have it with you? Now everything started to become clearer. I had no idea how she planned to do this. But I suspected that she had not given up hope of taking the girls with her. They kicked and scratched all the way unless she had something up her sleeve. The family passport played a decisive role in the deal. Carla, my coffee is cold. I'm going to go home and take a hot shower. Do not call me more. John, what the hell is wrong? How did I make you angry? You know damn well what you did. Do you two really think I'm that stupid? Go back to your whore sister and tell her there is no way she can have my daughters. Since you decided to do it, help her. I'll have to ask you to never talk to my girls again. Carla was talking on her cell phone as I left Mickey D's. I can only guess who she called. I arrived at the family services office before it opened. You couldn't stay away from me, could you? Jody walked into the office with a big smile on her face and a Starbucks cup in her hand. She motioned for me to sit down and apologize for not having more coffee. I think you know that I talked to your daughters yesterday? I nodded and smiled. For some reason I was a little tongue-tied, out of my element. I remembered that the same thing happened the last time I talked to her. Because I was with Janet my whole life, I never had the opportunity to develop any social skills with other women. Looks like I've paid for it now. Is something wrong, John? Apart from that, no, I wasn't trying to be smart. I just couldn't formulate the words. I'm so sorry, Jody. I think I'd better leave. I'm not aware of all this morning. I'll call you later. Before you go, I would like you to know that I am getting a restraining order against your wife. I can't stop her from seeing or being with the girls, but I can stop her from taking them out of state or denying you access to them. It will be delivered to her before noon. This brought a big smile to my face, but I left the office anyway. I headed to the nearest Starbucks. This coffee definitely smelled good. Until today, everything was under control. Now I felt depressed and confused. I drove around for a bit and then headed home. Billy told me that Sarah had moved back to her parents' house near Ephrata, so he was only returning to his place until he could sell or rent it out. He spent the morning at the bank, the insurance company, and the law office. He wanted to try to get some money from Gilbert, but they didn't have a company policy against fraternization. His lawyer said it will be an uphill battle. He walked past the hospital and learned that Calvin was being discharged. His wife was filling out paperwork for her discharge when she saw Billy. Before he could leave, she cornered him and carefully explained that she was trying to get Calvin to drop the charges against him. He was very surprised when she thanked him for his help. Apparently, she had been trying to fix the situation with Calvin for several years without success. After Billy left, I just sat on the porch and drank beer. Mom brought me a meatloaf sandwich and sat with me for a while. She didn't say anything, but she drank the beer. She said that Dad would come for dinner and stay the night. When Jody Mitchell pulled up, Mom came into the house. Jody sat next to me but refused the cold beer I offered. We sat there for a few seconds before she spoke. I served Janet's papers about an hour ago. She was a very angry woman. By the way, she was staying with her sister. I finished the long neck that I was holding in my hand. I think it's good, but why do I feel so bad? In such cases, there is nothing good, John, just less bad. I pulled out another beer, paused, and put it back in the refrigerator. Could you come in and explain all this to the girls? I get along well with them, but no matter how carefully I express myself, it will sound like I'm blaming their mother. I'm afraid if I do this, I will somehow push them away. I do not want to do this. How about 7 tonight? I nodded as she stood up and walked to her car. She stopped halfway and looked back. This was a good sign and I smiled. She smiled back. Jody came over that evening and spent a long time with Beth and Britt. Billy and I were busy searching his house and clearing out anything that belonged to Sarah or reminded him of Sarah. Jody started coming to our house several times a week. Pretty soon she was spending as much time with my mom as she was with the girls. I noticed that she was ignoring me. This suited me, but I was curious. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, she sat next to me. I felt like I had to talk to her. I didn't have the chance. She spoke first. "Danny, do you have any wine?" Something like that. My speaking skills still needed work. "What does it mean?" "I don't have anything with a cork. I have wine, but it all has screw caps." She seemed to think it was funny. "Bring me something red and bring me a bottle." Well, the bottle looked more like a jug, but she didn't seem to mind. I poured it and we drank. Finally, I forced myself to break the ice. "I think the girls get a lot of benefit from your visits. How long will you have to see them?" "Oh, the twins are fine. They don't need to see me. I came to her to see you." "I don't understand. You barely even talk to me when you're here." "I thought that was what you wanted." "Not really. I was just afraid you had some kind of rule against fraternizing with clients." Her quiet laugh made me feel more comfortable. "I'm amazed that you didn't even ask to see my tattoos." "What tattoos?" It was clear that she was trying to engage me in some frivolous conversation to try to relax me. It was a good plan and I appreciated it. "I have 4 of them and I got them when I was in high school. 3 are easy to find but 1 is harder." "Are you going to show them to me, or will I have to look for them?" "It'll be more fun if you watch, but I'm going to need some more wine if you're going to do this." We both laughed as I filled her glass to the brim. The hunt was much more interesting because we had to be quiet so as not to wake the girls. The 4th one was indeed in a very secluded place and I admired her for a long time before she pushed me away. She left before the twins got out of bed. But I had a strange feeling that they knew what had happened. I told my lawyer from the phone book to finish the divorce papers and deliver them. Janet will have to accept what I suggest or do it herself. She was still living with Carla when the papers were served. There was no answer and they didn't even call me. Several more weeks passed. Things weren't going well for my father. Mom spent more time there than with me. Fortunately, school was just ending and the girls moved in with her for the summer. By the end of the summer, Dad was transferred to a nursing home. Billy and I helped Mom prepare the family home for sale and Mom moved back in with me. Jody visited the girls at their mother's all summer and spent 3 or 4 evenings a week with me. They went shopping and out to dinner together, and I was glad for the attention Brittany and Bethany were giving. At least I didn't envy them anymore. I was pretty sure they knew what was going on between Jody and me. Janet called the girls about once a week, but the conversations were always short and according to her mother seemed tense. Most of the time the twins didn't even tell me she called. Billy's divorce from Sarah was finalized. I had no idea what my status was. He also decided he wanted to start his own surveying business and asked me to come with him. I didn't have enough money to contribute until my mom came to the rescue. When she and her father ran out of money, Medicare picked up his expenses. Instead of watching it all disappear, she thought I should use it for business. I believe she also thought of it as an investment in her future. 3 months later, Billy and I had our own small surveying business. Fortunately, my drawing skills developed into drawing stories. About a week into the new semester, the twins were visited by their mother. They thought they would go to the guidance office to see Jody, and they were both disappointed to see Janet. They tried their best to be polite and respectful to her, but they still couldn't. She told them she loved them both and was sorry things turned out the way they did. She was going to Spain to see the windmills and would send them some postcards. She promised to call them every year on their birthday and send them amazing Christmas gifts. They said she cried when she left. Janet never called me to tell me she was leaving, but the next week her parents showed up at the house. They apologized again for what Janet did, but made no attempt to defend her or justify her actions. Brittany and Bethany were their only grandchildren, and they wanted to be able to see them. I had no problem with their request. They said Carla was too ashamed to come to me. She was torn between her sister and her parents. 2 months later, my divorce was final. Jody and I went to Red Lobster to celebrate. It was a rare evening without girls. They didn't seem to mind. In fact, I think they were in some ways happy. We spent the night at a local Holiday Inn. The twins were delighted when I returned home at 10 o'clock the next morning. They didn't say anything, but they smiled from ear to ear all day. A year later things were going great, but unfortunately Dad passed away. Mom expressed interest in moving to Florida with her sister, but did not want to leave the girls. The twins felt that their grandmother had to leave. They carefully explained to me that Jody could take her place even though she couldn't cook as well as my mother. They also insisted that they were old enough to live in separate rooms. It was an obvious and good plan. The girls received birthday cards from their mother, but there was no phone call. She also sent many cards. All the postcards showed Spanish windmills. I wasn't sure what that meant. She sent them 2 fashionable embroidered dresses for Christmas, but didn't expect young girls entering their teens to experience a growth spurt. None of them seemed disappointed that the dresses were too small. Gilbert Engineering became our largest client. Billy was pleased to learn that Calvin was now teaching electronics at Lebanon County Vocational School, which was a big downgrade from his previous position. He was no longer married. Sarah remarried and moved to California. Ken Sanders didn't last 6 months at his new job. He was now working in the States, but no one seemed to know where. Billy contacted his high school's alumni association to see if he could figure it out. My best friend always thought I got away with Ken too easily. The strange thing was that the girls still received postcards with pictures of windmills. There was never any information on the cards, just general sentiments. Cameron told me that Janet called them several times. She worked at a travel agency in Barcelona. She never mentioned Ken or gave them any information about what happened between them. Jody and I went to Maryland to get married quietly. A year later she was waiting. Brittany and Bethany were just as excited as we were. They were looking forward to having a little goth girl as a sister. I think it was some kind of private joke between the girls and their new mother. They never let me in on it. I never understood the significance of Spanish windmills.